Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blame It on Marketing. We have Brian Fraser back with us, who is in our top two, either top one or second. He keeps flipping between Will Aitken and him, so I can't confirm at this moment what it is. But Brian was with us for marketing role Red Flags. Brian is a marketing recruitment consultant and has been working in the marketing space for a while now. But yeah, it's lovely to have him back, and we wanted to do an episode about landing your first marketing job. So, Brian, I'll let you do a little introduction for those of you who haven't seen the first episode. Naughty, naughty.
Yes. So hola, if you've not seen the first episode, what are you doing? So yes, I'm Brian. I'm from up in Scotland, and like Ruta said, I recruit in marketing, head up a little team up there. And after our first episode, I think we kind of sussed out that between the two of you and myself, seeing all the dirty things that happen in the world of marketing through recruitment, we're like, okay, we're on to something. So I'm back here, and hopefully, we'll give some useful knowledge.
Good. And we hope this episode is good for everyone. So, if it's your first job in marketing in terms of like you've just graduated or you've just left school and you want to get into marketing, but also if you're looking to make the jump into marketing, I think we're going to try and cover kind of the whole spectrum here. So, in case you're worried that this is for uni graduates, it shouldn't be.
Absolutely. Good caveat, Ruta. Also, if you are thinking about getting your next marketing role, I think there will also be some useful tips in here. So we're covering all of our bases when it comes to trying to land those marketing jobs. And the reason we want to talk about this is obviously we know that, I mean, there's been a lot of layoffs in the marketing world, but also we know that a lot of people look at marketing as kind of like this glamorous, sexy job sometimes. We're all like, yeah, sure. And so we know that there's always a lot of interest in sort of like creative industry jobs, of which marketing and some of the marketing specialisms, kind of tick some boxes for some people. So we wanted to, just explore what you need to do. And actually, it's worth mentioning that Ruta and I both did not start off in marketing. We both transitioned across into like straight marketing roles at some point. So we'll dig into that a little bit so we can share some of our experience too. I will shut up now. But Brian, please do tell us, why do you think it's so difficult for people to kind of land, this is just in general terms, land their first marketing job?
Yeah, so I just think it's probably if you're looking for your first marketing job or you've been here or you're looking for your next, you're just thinking, where do I start? It's just crazy. I run a lot of meetups in Scotland, and it's a chat I have with everyone. I think the market is so broad nowadays. When I began recruiting about 6 years ago now, there's roles that now exist that previously did not exist. And like you said, the last few years has been quite a crazy journey going on. There's been a lot of layoffs. There's just been a lot of changes happen in the last few years. So I just think it's probably just, where the hell do you start? And also when you dig into it, it's a lot more complex. And I think just through the years and for parents, it's probably instilled into you that, you can maybe just go into university or get some qualifications and get a job. It's so much more complex than that. And when we were talking about this podcast before, we were like, if we drew a spider diagram of marketing now, it would be crazy. You would need like a big blackboard to explain all the different areas. So I just think it's so complex and so broad now. It's just not a case of applying to a job now.
I also think it's quite difficult because, especially if it is your first marketing job, you probably don't realize. I think there's probably a lack of understanding about what the expectations are on you are going to be. I think because marketing can quite often be perceived as a creative job, that's going to either attract people or it's going to put them off, or they're going to find out that the reality is something quite different. Because quite a lot of, especially first, marketing exec jobs, they're not going to be the most fun. They're not going to necessarily be the most creative. So that might either put you off or deter you. But in the same breath, it might also be like, oh, I'm not sure I tick any of these boxes. I think we also had a bit of a chat around if you're a university graduate and what that's like. Brian, yes. I know you end up talking to quite a lot of uni graduates.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think it's just so daunting. And again, I think it's if you're a university just now and you're wanting to break into marketing, at university, what it prepares you for is it prepares you for the kind of bigger picture of marketing. However, it maybe doesn't go into some of the granular stuff. Sure. So it means you kind of go out into the world, probably just thinking you're gonna, come up with an overall market strategy, and do that, whereas you don't go into the granular of what it is. And I also think as well, when you're at university, because there's so many areas now in marketing, you also have your career advisors at university, and bless them, but they're spread very, very thin. They need to advise someone who is going to go into hospitality, go into an engineering role, become a software developer, and also become a marketeer. So also they can really give specialist advice as to how you can go out to market and what roles you can go for. So I think this is kind of almost where it kind of comes down to, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I want to get my next marketing job, my first marketing job, it's thinking, actually going out there and almost doing your research. And we spoke about this as well between ourselves, and it's my like cheesy phrase I use over and over, but as a marketer, you need to think, how do you market yourself? You need to go out and you need to do your market research. You need to kind of get out with that university bubble.
Given like that kind of imaginary spidergram that we're talking about, like me working in marketing, I couldn't even give you the full spider diagram because I work in like a specific type of business industry and like a specific type of product. So I could give you a pretty good idea of everything that happens that's close to me. But me and my boyfriend were walking down the road, and I probably shouldn't admit to this, but I was like, Joseph, I have a secret. I don't know what the fuck product marketers do. And that's like in SaaS. I'm like, I don't understand the line. I don't like, I keep looking at different descriptions and I'm like, how is that just not normal marketing? Or like, how is that not just product? Like, what's the in between? So like, even myself, like I struggle. So yeah, getting out of that dependency on your uni is going to be your best bet, and just literally go on LinkedIn and jobs and look at like marketing jobs and just start reading through the job titles. You're just going to be like, okay, I need to make a list here, right?
It's also that whole like, how do you line what skills you actually have, regardless of whether you went to uni or you've had a day job doing something completely different. How do the skills that you have as a person line up with the job specs? Because I think that's a big thing. I think that deters a lot of people, right? It's that whole thing where I read, like some of the fundamentals of marketing. We've talked about this before when we went on the Marketing Dribble podcast, didn't we, Roots? About how, like being organized, fundamentally a very key thing in marketing, like being able to work to deadlines, those sorts of things. And people would never think like, oh, because I've done another job randomly that aligns to those things, or I'm really good with spreadsheets, I'm really good with numbers. Like Ruta, you were saying, your background is you went to university, you studied economics. You never thought there was any connection between economics and marketing, not to start with anyway. And now later in your career, you're like, wow, my God, this stuff ties together so well. So I think there is a big thing around, like, I guess it's understanding the expectations of the jobs and the difference between skills and like, actual tangible things you can do. Do you think though, guys, because obviously that was a bit of a tangent, but do you think that means that organizations are making it difficult for people to kind of enter their first marketing job because we talk this language that maybe the people who are applying for the jobs don't actually understand?
Yeah, I think yes and no. It's such a, again, if we spider diagrammed it, we'd probably end up going wild here and going insane. But I think probably back to the first question, probably comes to people doing their own research as well and thinking, how do you package yourself up? What's your USP when you go out to market? Did you have a part-time job? So kind of the onus is kind of on the job seeker as well. Myself as a recruiter, for example, like in graduate recruitment, and why I think it's hard for people to get jobs in marketing, especially kind of junior and grad level, is I, as a recruiter, actually barely work any graduate jobs. When I run my meetups, I have so many graduates come up to me and be like, hey, can you help me, find a job? And the reason I barely work any graduate jobs is there are a lot of people out there in the market looking for a marketing job, whatever that could mean. The companies can just put up a job advert on LinkedIn or Indeed and have hundreds of people apply. So why the hell are they going to pay someone like myself for a service when they can do it themselves? So I barely work that. But then what that means is when you enter the world of high volume recruitment, as a candidate, you need to understand what that looks like on the back end, and just flinging over your CV isn't good enough. And we kind of spoke about this, and I predominantly recruit for SMEs, but I know you have experience in kind of bigger businesses. But you enter the realm of like ATSs, where a system, literally like auto reads, your CV. If your CV is in a PDF where text can be read, or in a graph, you'll just be rejected for the job. So it's really, really difficult. So I think yes and no. I think it does become difficult because when you enter the world of high volume recruitment, it's again that piece of, how do you set yourself apart? How do you really tailor your CV and the applications? And you've probably had this yourself when you're recruiting, like anyone and their granny apply to marketing roles. So again, it's thinking if you've done a degree, if you have a really intrinsic interest in marketing, you've gone and done all these courses or made a transition like yourself, you want to really position yourself right. So that was a bit of a tangent, but I think yes and no. I think it kind of comes from both parties, doesn't it?
I do agree with Emma. We do have like a secret language, and I think everyone has a secret language based on the different areas they work in, which it's going to be hard to get your head around if you're a graduate looking at all of these hopefully well written job descriptions, so you don't have to do you know translation. But yeah, it does get difficult, and I know, Emma, you spoke about that when you started working with us at Clearview. You were like, you'd write down like acronyms and like just random stuff we say and then go and look at them later because there's so much basically weird language that we use.
Yeah, and it's like, so I had done, just as a bit of experience for anyone who's listening, thinking, oh my God, that's a bit tragic. I'm a total fake it till you make it person. I was like, I know how to do this job, but do I know what they're talking about? Fuck no. Because it was a completely different industry, completely different sector. But I'd been working in I'd been doing marketing as part of my job for a long, long, long time. And then I transitioned across to work in a SaaS company, and there are all these kind of different new words, different language to talk about marketing in a way that I'd never heard before. And I obviously, I mean, really stupidly as well, I was like, I'm not going to admit to these people that I don't know what they're saying. I'm just going to go away and look it up afterwards, which was also a terrible thing. Like, in all honesty, most people you should hold your hands up. But I think if you encounter a job description where you're like, what language is this in? I think that is a really good opportunity, like you were sort of saying, Brian, you have to do more than just provide a CV. If you want to be in the game for the job and you really want to be taken seriously, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, you have got to market yourself in amongst all these other people. I don't think you should ever be put off by the volume of people applying to a job because, as you say, like, God, 80% of that will be crap. But you should think of a way to stand out. Like, just sending, especially if it's your first marketing job, just sending your CV across probably isn't enough. No one is ever going to mind if you drop the recruiting person or the head of marketing or whoever it might be that's recruiting a message on LinkedIn or wherever and say, hey, I just, I'd love to just find out a little bit more, or this is my experience. What do you think? Is it even worth me applying? Those sorts of things. And get some honest feedback really from people. But you've got to go out there and do that, and that's not always that straightforward.
And speaking of CVs not being enough, and I think this applies to anyone looking to get a marketing job, let's talk about portfolios.
Yeah, which is so common. So see in other industries, so common. I recruit for God knows how many roles, and people don't do portfolios a lot. But when they do, you're like, oh, hello, like it's great. But in other industries, see if you're a developer, you have what's called a GitHub where you like host your code basically, and you show what you've worked on. And as a marketeer, absolutely. Or if you're a grad, if you've done freelance stuff, or you've done an internship, put it somewhere.
Yeah, and I guess that's the easiest way to prove you also have marketing experience without maybe ever having had a proper marketing job, right? Like, you can whip up a website, you can work on some SEO, you can write some blogs, you can make a TikTok about something that you're passionate about. Like, they're all very tangible things that don't require you to work in marketing to have marketing experience, which is actually fantastic, right? I'm sure there's other jobs that this applies to, but this feels like it's very tangible.
I think that's it, especially like if it is your first marketing job. And even if, for example, you have a TikTok channel or you're really into Instagram and you do loads of editing, video editing, or you do loads of social stuff, the likelihood of a more senior marketer being impressed by that is quite high, most of us, you know, especially when it comes to some of those other channels, some of us don't have that skill set, you know, like being real, the amount of senior marketers that could be like, we should do a TikTok. And you're like, why? None of us know how to do anything to do with TikTok. I'm showing my age.
Yeah. What is a TikTok?
Excuse me, what is this?
TikTok? What is it?
I've only just moved on from MySpace, to be honest with you guys. But yeah, I think it is that having that. Yeah. It's having that
bit of coding, bit of HTML.
Yeah. Do you know what though? That is, I mean, when I genuinely think about where I got my marketing experience from, none of the tangible bits of marketing experience that I have are from jobs that sometimes had nothing to do with marketing. Like, I don't know if you feel the same, Ruta, but like, I know because you've got Ruta's got a beauty influencer background, everybody, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, I used to make YouTube videos, as we all did at some point in life, about makeup and skincare and whatever the hell else I decided to do. But then you look back at that and you're like, oh, so like you can create content, you can plan, you know, how to distribute it, you can optimize for searchability and like all of those things. And like obviously when I was a graduate trying to get a marketing job, didn't click for me that, you know, those are all legit marketing skills. So I didn't get a marketing job. I ended up in sales, which is completely fine. But you know, there was more to that I could have really worked on and pulled out, but I just didn't know.
I think all that's so important. Like having, even one thing I even find as well is even just having jobs when you're studying. I think that's so important as well. Like I think sometimes people underestimate that, but the things that you build up from having, say, just a customer service job, right? You know, like I recruit for a ton of agencies, for example, and typically in the agencies, you're going to be dealing with a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of external stakeholders, if you're, say, working in campaigns, and just having that kind of experience of dealing with people. So again, you probably don't think all of this matters, but it's almost kind of thinking of every part of your CV that you've done. And that's probably why, if, say, you are a student or you're looking to transition, it's looking at how you can almost market every piece of what you've done. So as you said, you may have done some little kind of side hustle on the side. You may have had experience dealing, if you imagine yourself, Ruta, you'll have had great experience dealing with stakeholders, you know, so going into a business, just be, you know it straight away is so important. I think as well, probably going on to that as well, like obviously if you're marketing yourself, you can obviously optimize your LinkedIn, your CV, which I think we're maybe going to do a bit of material on that, because I feel like that's a whole can of worms that we can open up. But again, it's just about making it easy to read, defeat the ATS systems, but also networking as well. You know, there's things like networking you can do. There's things like certifications, trying to do internships, freelance. I think trying to kind of add all that extra stuff on beyond just a degree, let's say, I think is so important.
So I haven't had to get a marketing job in a while, and the last few marketing jobs I've had, I wouldn't say were particularly difficult to get. But I'm wondering like what the reality of actually trying to get your first marketing job either out of university or out of a different career is like now. Like, you know, how is there a way to quantify how difficult it is? Or I don't even know if this is a valuable question, or it might just scare people.
It's like creating a multi-channel strategy. I think it's like going back to all those things that we spoke about. And at one of the most recent networking events that I had, there was I was doing this. I kind of just finished speaking, and then I had about, I think, 4 graduates kind of corner me and ask for advice, you know. And then when I'm, you know, I wasn't really in recruiter mode then. I was like, oh my god, I've just spoken in front of people. I've slightly peed myself. And they came to me, and one of the people in this group was this really fantastic guy, and it's really stuck with me. And they were kind of saying, you know, what should I be doing? And he was someone I dealt with like over a year ago, and he had almost kind of done like a multi-channel approach to recruitment. And he began saying, oh, I began messaging people on LinkedIn, just saying, hey, I'm looking for some experience. And he went to networking events and he met people. He, you know, had created some different CVs, had really tailored, and all those things. You think, oh, it's maybe not important. But I remember speaking to the guy over a year ago and then hearing him talk to those graduates. And I was like, hey, guys, like, you're giving them better advice than me. I was like, I'm just going to leave you and I'll saunter off. And I think it's all those kind of extra things. I think, you know, if you're a graduate nowadays, it's really scary. So you probably need to build your confidence. You can go to really amazing networking events. Just get yourself an Eventbrite, get yourself on Google. It's an aggregator, it pulls all the events through to simple keyword research, and go and do some certifications. And exactly like Emma said, if you see a job that looks good, you know, make sure your CV is actually tailored. And then the one piece of advice with a CV is, see, too many people do a kind of scatter approach and they just apply to a role. I was working a role in sports betting, right? And I had people apply to the role, and it's like, you've not even mentioned that you're into sports on the CV when you're applying to the role. Just make sure, like, you just tailor it. And what should really happen is your CV should almost be the yin to the yang of the job you're applying for. And I know it sounds like a lot of work, but like you said, Ruta, you've not had to work much to get your next, your kind of last few jobs. And that's kind of what happens because marketing's so broad. Typically, you'll get into some area, could be B2B, lead gen, PU, and once you're in there, you are in there, unless we have we've had crazy fears. But typically, if you're in marketing and you put the work in and you do all that extra work that I've mentioned, you'll be like yourself, Ruta, and you'll probably get headhunted through your career just about banging that door down and getting in. And you'll be like Ruta, and you'll just get picked for your next job, you know? And you'll get me headhunting you saying...
Yeah. After that first proper, like, marketing job title, like, it's just significantly easier. Like, it completely drops off the difficulty scale. I don't know if Emma, if you felt that way after that first proper marketing title, that everything else just was much, much easier.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, once you've had especially once you've been in the head of position in particular, like that, and then upwards from there, you know, the game changes generally. And if you've worked at a successful company that people have publicly seen as successful as well, yeah, the game definitely changes. I think obviously that's quite a virtuous position to be in. I'm not going to lie. I don't think it's that easy for everybody. I've seen a lot of colleagues and people who are very good marketers not have that, you know, have not been headhunted, have not had that thing. And that might be by virtue of the fact that maybe the brand they work for is not particularly exciting, or maybe they're limited in what they might be really good marketers, but they're limited in the role that they're doing. So I think sometimes, like, I think we have been lucky. I think it's worth recognizing that and calling that out. But I don't think that should put people off. I think one of the key things is, you know, sometimes, and I think historically side hustles were always kind of seen as this sort of like dirty thing that you shouldn't really be doing because it's distracting you from your day job. But actually, I think if you want to go and work for a company where they recognize that having that side hustle or doing your own thing outside of work is really, really good, like, and you can show that, and you can show that actually, look all the great stuff that I've managed to do for myself outside of my crappy day job that doesn't let me do anything because my CEO is a control freak, which is the usual story. You've got something to show, and I think that applies to if you're looking for your next marketing job, or you're looking for your first job, like we've sort of said. But like, it doesn't matter what your hobby is or your thing is outside of work. Like, you can turn that into a marketing thing, like Ruta did with her beauty stuff. I used to write about clothes when I was at uni. So shallow, honestly.
Two peas in a pod.
I know. It was like we were meant to be together, weren't we? Spent all my student loan on clothes so that then I could write a blog about it. Like, such great advice. Don't do that, anyone. But yeah, those sorts of things, you know, it's like you turn that into something. I know other people who, you know, like gardening and have an Instagram about their garden. Like, even that to a certain extent shows that you have the ability to promote your stuff and your content, and you understand how the algorithm works, all those sorts of things. Like, people don't ever think about it in that capacity.
Yeah, marketing's so broad as well. I think it's worth bearing in mind as well that if you think about kind of marketing as a function in a business, as most businesses tend to have marketing within it, there's rarely another kind of career path that is kind of present in every business, you know? Like, typically if you're maybe like an engineer, you're maybe going into an environment, you typically know kind of what it will look and feel like. However, marketing is very diverse. You can be B2B, B2C. You can work any single product that's sold out there in the world. Everything that's in this room right now has been marketed somewhere. Someone has came up with that strategy and they've pushed it as well. So I think as well, that's the thing with marketing, which is why I feel like it's a kind of job role that you need to actually feel an affinity towards what you're doing typically, because there is that, despite the fact that marketing nowadays, is moving towards kind of data analysis. We all know that. And again, that's a different topic, but fundamentally it's creativity, and you kind of need to care about what you're doing as well. So I think that's probably what makes it so difficult in the job search as well, because you're applying to this, that, and every single business. Is crazy. And it's not like HR where you'll just go in and you'll be doing HR, kind of back end. Like, you need to actually go in and probably be like, yeah, I'm interested in your product. I find it cool, when actually maybe just want a marketing job, it's so much more. Again, marketing's broad and so is where it's present.
Brian, are there any courses or personal development things that if you see on a CV of someone maybe looking to switch careers, I know you don't do a whole bunch in that area, but that really impress you? It's almost like a stamp of approval of like, oh, okay, cool. Like that's the standard where they're at that you can think of.
100%. Like you said, I don't do loads in the world of recruitment for the reasons explained. Sorry, in graduate recruitment for the reasons explained. But there are certain courses, and again, it probably depends what path you want to go down. I think it's probably, if you go back to the beginning, make yourself a spider diagram, decide what area of marketing do you want to go into. Do you want to go into social? Do you fancy doing paid stuff? Do you like numbers, mathematics, that type of thing? Depends. If, for example, you want to do stuff on that more data-driven paid side, any Google certification is lovely. A lot of them are free as well. There are ones which you can then pay for. But honestly, if you're applying to a role that is asking for, or is probably not asking for PPC, but probably say maybe like an understanding in PPC and may have not been taught that in uni, definitely do your Google search. Amazing. Same on the social side as well. This could be for organic or the paid side. Meta as well. Fabulous. You want to do that as well. And there's loads of kind of free resources out there as well. And I think just if you graduate and you're hunting for a job or you're looking to transition in marketing, you also want to do as much courses as you can. So there's loads of online platforms out there. You will probably be able to recommend tons as well. But there's things like, obviously HubSpot have got amazing resources. They're just a plethora of things on there. A course I've seen recently as well, and I've heard some really good things about it as well, is the the mini MBA everyone's getting as well. I think it's maybe, I want to say it's maybe 100 hours. I could be bluffing, though, but it's something that is really, it's not. I'm seeing a lot of even experienced marketers doing, and it kind of just shows they're carrying on their craft and learning and growing as well. And I think that's the thing with marketing. If you want to keep on growing, keep doing courses. They're probably the main ones that I see. And if I see that, fantastic. But I've had clients say to me with these jobs, if they've got Google certs and they're a grad, let's go. So definitely certifications, 100%. But also, if you play around in Google, you might also then go, I want a career in this as well. So I think as a marketer, you probably need to toy around with all these different verticals and decide what's for you as well, rather than just saying, I want a job in marketing.
Agreed. I would not ever want a job in pure PPC. I would literally kill myself. Like, just not for me. And I know, and I like maths and data. Like, I love that, but like, I would not want my life to be managing Google ads and even with the creative side. So yeah, like, make sure you kind of get a good idea of what that thing is and be like, okay, if I had to do this 5 days a week, how would I feel about that? Because I've got loads of hobbies in general, but like I'd never want to do them professionally because I'd get so sick of them so quickly.
So many
If
people
it
have
was
wrong
actually my
turned.
living.
Yeah, so many people have, like, I've had so many people come to me and they're 1 year post grad and they go, I got a job in PPC, I hate it, can you help me? And then by that time I'm like, oh, it's going to be hard to then pivot because you've really kind of pigeonholed yourself. So I think it's so important you really do your research into the broad world of marketing. What do you want to do?
Yeah, and play around with it as well. Like if you get a more generalist role out the gate, like a general marketing exec or whatever it might be, you're going to get to have a go at a bit of everything, and that's not a bad thing for the first job that you do. Then you can figure it out. Like you might always remain a generalist. There's nothing wrong with that. Like Ruta and I have got a few specialisms, but we're also pretty general in terms of like we can do a bit of everything. There's not a problem with that, but we also know when to bring in people to, you know, boost the bits that we're not good at. That's, you know, that's what you do in marketing, because you cannot do it all. But yeah, having a bit of a go at that to start with is not a bad shout, so that you do get to learn a little bit. And also, when you're looking for a job and you are at the point where you're maybe interviewing, make sure you do ask, like, what are the personal development opportunities by working with you all? So, like, you've got some senior marketers around you. Are those people going to spend time with you, helping you sort of learn and develop your craft? Because I think that's something that's lacking quite often in organizations, is you hire in junior people, probably because, and quite often because there's firefighting going on and you think a cheap pair of hands is going to help you. Doesn't always work like that. And then what ends up happening is that more junior person doesn't have any to get any time with those more senior people. So if you are in a more junior position, or it's your first job or even your next job, ask what that's going to look like, and ask for structure around that. And just because you're junior doesn't mean that you can't ask for it and make sure it happens. I think that's the other thing to be clear about. Make sure it happens. Like, if you're going in and you want that development and you want those people to mentor you or whatever, do that. And then I think on the personal development side, I do think it is worth looking for a mentor. Like, that is a good thing. So, like, you know, like, I'm not saying Ruta and I can mentor absolutely everybody in the planet, but if you wanted us to, we could. Like, there are plenty of other people in senior positions that would do it. I mean, it's very flattering. We've all got egos, so, like, soothe the egos, like, you know, or, you know, if you like a podcast, or you like a YouTube channel, or you like someone's Instagram, like, don't be afraid to ask them if you can shadow them or find out a bit more about what they're doing. Like, that's really good for your development. So I think there's the formal side, which is really good. Totally agree with you, Brian. Like, get those certificates if you're going to do that stuff, but also, like, don't be afraid to ask people for things, especially if you explain
People
to
want to help. People want to help. Like, I think you'd be surprised. That, I think, is a kind of like the whole stiff upper lip thing. Like, you don't want to ask for help, and I think that's something in recent years we've got good at. And I think it's probably us millennials, isn't it? Like, actually helping and asking questions, you know, and really pushing for that. And typically, people want to help. You know, you just need to kind of it's a fear. You overcome the fear, isn't it? You have to overcome the fear of saying, please, can I help? Or sending a random message on LinkedIn or a DM on Instagram. Like, it's just, you never know. Like, that could be your next big thing.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't matter. Like, in all honesty, Ruta and I are quite senior. We have mentors for different things. Like, I'm not above asking someone. I ask Ruta all the time, and vice versa as well. Like, do you know what I mean? And we have mentors that would help us with things, because we don't have all the answers. So, like, it's a good thing to have someone who you can go to who's more senior to ask questions in, like, early on in your career. That's maybe not someone who's connected to work as well. You know, outside of work's good.
Yeah. And speaking of mentors and general networking, Brian, obviously you've got a marketer network yourself, but what's the best way to go about kind of starting that network, and maybe just networking with other marketers so you can understand a bit more of the job, you know, what things are like, and that kind of side of things?
Yeah, there's amazing. I think probably last year, kind of when I started who's got the Scottish Marketing Network. So anyone who's Scottish, please come along to our next one. But anyone also graduating in the last few years, you've not had much opportunity to network. So anyone who probably graduated kind of 2020 in the next 2-3 years didn't have the chance to go to these events, but they're really back heavy now, and there's so many amazing events out there. There's some organizations who run events, like you have your CIM, there's BMAT as an organization, there's way more. I'm just speaking about kind of what I know as present in Scotland. You've also then got the Marketing Meetup, who do events all across the UK as well. So there's all these amazing kind of organizations that host events, and it was, like I said earlier, literally get on Eventbrite, and there's even an event bit on LinkedIn. It's not so good. So, and then also see if you go on Google as well, like, it's just like an aggregator that pulls from all your different ticketing sites. So just look up marketing networking, like Manchester, London, and you'll be shown loads of events. It's so scary going to network. I remember I'm a recruiter, right? So, and it's like my job. And I went to my first one. I was like terrified. Even sometimes I go like tomorrow I've got like a burn supper I'm going to, and I'm a bit like, oh, like I don't actually know anyone there. I only have spoke to them, and I'm still really scared. And you will be the same as well. It's always the thing is you go in there and you network, and you forget that when you're networking, I think it's a bit of a, I could say a rude word, but it's a bit of a word, you know. It's just going and talking to people, talk to them like you would your friends, you know, like it's not, yeah, I think just get out there. And I've had so much amazing feedback from my events, like graduates who said they were terrified to go network, and it was a really welcoming community. Didn't realize how nice people were there. I had really senior marketeers who were like, oh, I'm working from home, I want to be around other people. So networking's so good. And I always feel, I don't know if you are the same as well, but I feel like you come away with a spring in your step and you're reinvigorated. Chances are these things, there's like a keynote speaker and you learn something as well. So I think it's just, you need to sometimes step away from the old desk, don't you? And just get out there.
Yeah, like we hate it. Like, in all honesty, we hate networking. Like, I love this. This is great. Like, I could do this with hundreds of people, but I tell you what, I don't want to be in a room full of people that I don't know. I think I really wish more marketing or just more networking things didn't just leave you to just network. As in, like, here's a glass of wine, go chat to people. Like, I hate that shit. Make me speed date everyone in the room. Like, that's fine. You know, I wish more people would do that. Like, to like formally, I don't know, structure the networking so all of us poor little extroverted introverts don't have like a breakdown. But
or just take a friend.
Yeah, and just, and but also,
if you're
like,
a graduate, who else is in your class?
Bring them with you, and but also, like, think of a go-to question. What's your go-to? Like, if you went up to a complete stranger, think of an opener. Think of a good question. Not just like, where do you work? What's your name? Like, think of a question. Even say to people, like,
do you have a dog?
Do you have a dog? Yeah. If someone says that to me, we're in.
I hate the idea of networking more than I hate networking itself. Like, it's like scary to get there and you're like, oh, all these people. But then you usually get there and you'll find at least one person you really like chatting to. And worst comes to worst, you just chat to them and then you go home, you know, and it's fine. And you're still better off than you were if you were, you know, watching YouTube on your sofa, which is my life, outside of work. And also, we're all normal people, right? Like, the fact that me and Emma have a podcast doesn't mean shit, like, or that we're senior marketers. Like, we still have the same problems. You know, our dog tries to pee on our carpet. Like, you know, my hair's looking weird today and I need to deal with it. Like, it's all the same shit. So yeah,
the way we are talking
we
shit,
forget.
that's what you do in networking. That's fundamentally,
yeah,
just
literally
go in, be yourself, be authentic. Because I think it's, I was going to use bungee jumping. That's the worst example because that is actually scary when you do it. But one of those examples in life where you really get that anxiety, you get that imposter syndrome. Let's not even go into that. It's so terrifying. But then when you actually go and do it, it's okay, it's fine. And I think there's so many things like that in life. You just need, and it's the same with networking. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like seeing the corporate world, you know, I think it's just been overhyped. It's like, networking, like, it's just a bit of a, it's kind of got a big bad boy name to it. And actually, it's not that bad. You're just going and speaking crap with people.
You are literally talking shit with people. And, like, if you get to talking about the job, fine. If you don't, you don't. Like, and the more you go and the more you do it, the more you realise, like you say, Ruta, I think that's what's happened, is that the corporate world in particular, the really, like, suited and booted corporate world, which none of us are from, but we recognise that has been made into this thing that makes you feel like you are an outsider. So you go into one of those situations and you see a group of people who are not like you, and you instantly feel on the back foot, and it's really difficult because you're like, how do I navigate this situation with these people who are not like me? But literally, I mean, this is a really terrible thing, but I always think to myself, do you know what? Everyone in this room takes a shit. Everyone in this room does a shit, like, or like everybody at some point is gonna.
Your version of picture everyone naked but take a shit.
Yeah, because I'm like, we're all this. It's an instant equalizer. There is not anyone in this room that doesn't take a shit.
Absolutely.
So there you go. I know this is going to get used in the blooper reel, isn't it?
Take a shit.
No, it's true. Well, you know, and if someone isn't nice or is like, you know, sometimes you will come across people that think they don't poo, and that's okay. Just be like, oh, lovely to meet you, and just walk away on to the next one. I promise that's not the majority of marketers out there. That's, you know, I don't think we fall into that personality category in general, but like you'll find someone else to chat to. It's totally cool. This has now turned into an episode about how to get brave from networking, which I love. But I think we can all probably do more networking, right? Like,
I think as well, see if you're doing networking, you're already 2 steps ahead of a lot of other
oh
people. You know,
yeah,
if we're talking about the competitive, you're already 2 steps ahead. And also, you might not think about it, but it really boosts confidence as well. I've had so many people interview for jobs, and the reason they don't get the jobs is because of maybe how they articulate themselves, or they maybe don't have confidence or conviction in what they're doing, you know, and that's sometimes just as important as a skill set piece, because again, stakeholder managing, yada, yada, yada. So if you're doing networking, you're probably already a few steps ahead in your pie chart of a career. You know, you're bulking something up, you're building the confidence. So definitely go for it.
Is there anything we didn't ask you that we should have done?
About my dog? No, honestly, I feel no. I feel like we've probably gone really. I know. I feel like we've probably gone really in depth, and as we said, I think we'll be creating some material after this. So honestly, I think if you're listening to this and this is currently your predicament in your situation, think how do you market yourself, optimize your LinkedIn, your CV, and start just having an outbound approach. It's scary, but you can do it. You can do it.
I'm going to wrap up then. Um, well, thank you so much for coming back, Brian. We also have an episode in this season coming out with Will Aitken, so it's going to be a bit of a fight to the death about who takes the top spot for season 6. I'm really looking forward to seeing who does it. There's going to be a fight on social media. I'm really looking forward to it. Yes. So thank you. Thanks so much again, Brian. Keep an eye out. We're going to repost Brian's LinkedIn tips around like landing your first job and what to do with your LinkedIn and all that jazz. And yeah, we'll see you again very soon. Thanks, Brian.